I'm Marissa Lennox, and this is a special for the Zoomer Digital Network, premiering on Blog TO. And with me is the man who would like to be Canada's next Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre, and his wife, Anna. Thank you for being here.
Great to be with you.
So I take it you're running on 4 hours of sleep and a cup of coffee, whatever granola bar you could get between events?
Well, more than one cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And a lot of adrenaline, which both keep us going.
Was becoming Prime Minister something you knew you always wanted to achieve, or is that the kind of thing that developed over time? Because you've spent a good amount of time in politics.
I wouldn't say it's something I always wanted to accomplish. I think it, when I was like most kids, when I was young, I played hockey and I thought I'll be an NHL player. And then when I actually got into other sports, but I suffered an injury. And my shoulder was injured, so I couldn't play sports anymore. And I was kind of bored. I'd get home from school, sit on the couch, watch TV, like bored out of my skull. And because I couldn't do any sporting events. So I said to my mother, take me to one of these progressive conservative meetings you go to. And I went there and they gave me some books I should read. And I read and read and read and read, and then suddenly became very excited about politics. And I got a job in politics on Parliament Hill. And not long after that, I actually decided to run in an election where I was expected to have zero chance of winning.
How old were you?
I was 24 when I started running and 25 when I won. But it was against the sitting defense minister who was quite popular in his riding, and everyone thought, there's no way this kid's going to take on the defense minister. He's got an army behind him, literally. And we pulled it off, and so the rest is history.
Was there ever a moment where you thought, maybe it was on stage at one of your rallies, maybe it was when you became the leader of the party, but when you thought, I could actually be Prime Minister. This might actually come to be true.
I wouldn't say there was I wouldn't say there's one moment. It doesn't strike like a lightning bolt, like, oh, this is it right here and now. I all of a sudden think that I will be Prime Minister. I think it was the accumulation of, over time, I fought for a lot of people, and they started telling me that they saw me in that role. And we would get lots of calls and lots of emails and lots of text messages saying, you should really run, and we believe in you. And so over time, I became convinced. But it wasn't something like I either was born believing it or woke up one morning and some eureka moment happened. It was just a gradual progression.
Well, people want to know about the person as well as they want to know about the politician. Mm-hmm. So, it used to be in the 60s and 70s that presidential candidates would have to be seen at sporting events in order to be elected. Mm-hmm. So, do you like baseball?
I'm not a huge baseball fan. I do like the baseball atmosphere. So we have been to a few ball games. We enjoy the feeling, the fun, the relaxed atmosphere. But I've never been a big baseball player. I grew up playing hockey. I was into wrestling. I enjoy watching MMA. But I've never been a baseball or a basketball guy. All
right, well, that's fair enough.
So, I do like the atmosphere, and it's a good place to connect with people. Well, are you a baseball fan?
By default.
She's from Venezuela. Baseball is huge in Venezuela.
Yeah. My mom is from Dominican Republic, and I'm born in Venezuela, so we're like the top players.
The Venezuelans or Dominicans?
Both.
Okay.
Both, yeah.
In
Montreal, when I moved to Montreal, there was the Expos.
Yeah.
There's Expo de Montréal. Mm-hmm. And Moises Alou was the coach who is from Dominican.
And she's a soccer player,
And his son was part of the team as well.
You're a soccer player, though.
I played soccer.
And she wants her kid. She wanted to name our kid Ronaldo. And I said, we're not naming my son after someone you have a crush on.
No, then I said it was because of Ronald Reagan, but in Spanish.
She tried to claim it was because of Ronald Reagan.
I just put an O at the end.
It was a nice try. It didn't work. We called him Cruz instead.
Let's talk about your kids, Cruz and Valentina.
Yes.
It's been nice to see them on the campaign trail with you guys.
Thank you.
Although I imagine it can be challenging at times because your schedule is so busy. What's that been like?
Well, it's actually been great for the kids because they had a wonderful adventure for most of the first 3 weeks. Does that be right?
They did about 2 weeks total.
And we brought in-laws on to help with the juggling act. But Valentina loves motion. She loves to be physically moving places, and campaigns move. Buses that roll, planes that fly. So you're always going from one thing to the next, and that kept her very excited and stimulated. At times that was a bit too much for her, so she had to go back to the hotel and cool down a little bit. And but our little guy Cruz, he loved the whole thing. He loved everything. Everywhere I went, he wanted to be part of it. And he always liked to say he's helping Dad with work. And he's an adventurer. He's inquisitive. And for him, I hope he remembers it. He's 3, so I think
what
the
do you
memories.
What do you think they're taking away from all of this?
I don't know. I don't think they understand what's going on. I think to them it must just be a blur.
Chris says it's all Daddy's friends.
Yeah, she would come up to a rally and we'll have these thousands of people.
Who are these people? Daddy's friends.
And so I think he believes that we're just going to big parties with our friends and having celebrations right across the country.
At our last rally, he would not get off the stage.
Yeah.
And he always needs a microphone now. We have to
Yeah.
give him a microphone. He goes on the stage.
We got a toy microphone for him now.
When you think back on your life, your childhood, your upbringing, was there anything that stands out as having prepared you for this moment?
Yeah, look, I had to come from, I started off in a very modest background. So I had to fight for everything I have. No, nothing was handed to me. I don't have a famous last name or a trust fund, or I wasn't handed my political career. I had to fight to become a member of parliament. I had to run against a very well-entrenched 7-time politician. I had to run the nomination, win from scratch. And in fighting for that, I had to learn that this is a ground-up game. There's nothing handed to you. And that's my belief system for the country. We should be a meritocracy where you have to fight for and work for the things that you get. You don't get them handed down by privilege or wealth or ancestry. And in making those making the tough decisions in the House of Commons on legislation, on political decisions, as a minister, it prepared me for what I know now. And then the final thing I would say is my very close connection with the people on the ground gave me insights that the expert class miss. I predicted inflation would be a crisis back in late 2020 when Mark Carney, who supposedly knows lots about these things, was still saying that we'd have deflation. I was the first to call out the housing crisis when no one else even noticed. Well, why? Because I was on the ground talking to barbers and mechanics and electricians who happen to know a lot more about economics than do the big shot politicians and bureaucrats that don't get out very much.
Even with our family. Like you call your mom who's a senior, or my brother who's a carpenter.
Yeah.
Like just even within our own circle.
And you hear, it's incredible, you hear things from people when you ask 5 carpenters, 2 mechanics, 3 electricians, 5 stay-at-home moms what's going on. And all of a sudden you'll hear things, and then a year and a half later, all the experts will be talking about those things.
Yeah.
So I have a very much ground-up philosophy, and that's how I plan to govern.
You still call your mom for advice?
Always.
Yeah, I do. She'd say not enough, but I do.
And for you, Anna, it takes a tough woman to...
Thank you. It's been an honor. It's been an honor of our lifetime. I think we were talking about this recently, you and I. It's such an honor for us to be on the ground. I take inspiration out of him. I mean, he's been doing it for 3 years, nonstop, there with the people. And so for me, it's been just an honor to be by my husband's side. And like he was talking earlier in another interview, the fact that we get to shake hands with these people and they share their stories with us and it stays with us. So to have that connection, not everybody gets to do that. So I'm happy to do it with him.
You're polling well among millennials and Gen Zs, particularly among younger men. And it was this demographic that actually helped get Justin Trudeau elected in 2015. Mm-hmm. So we've seen an inversion of demographics this time around. Why do you think that is?
Because the youth have been robbed of what Canada promised everybody. We had a very simple deal in this country. You go to school, you get a job. By the time you're in your mid-20s, you get a house. And if you want to start a family, you can do that. If you hustle, you can eat, you can have a tremendous life. But I mean, the last 10 years has been hell on earth for young people. They can't afford a place to live. They're on a treadmill. I think the youth today work harder and longer than any generation since the Second World War. When I was in university, you used to be able to have a part-time or summer job, and that was more than enough to come out of school without a lot of debt. You could pay it off in a couple of years and then have a down payment a couple of years after that. Right. And now, like, I meet young people who are working 40 hours a week while taking a full course load. And then when they get out, it's 1.5 or 2 jobs, and that is not to save up. That's just to survive. So that has, they've been robbed. And this is not inevitable. This is not, like, we can't just blame it on some kind of random circumstance that fell out of the sky. These are just government decisions that caused this hell. And I'm the only one who's been calling it out for the last 5 years. Yeah. I said 4 years ago, you're blocking homes, you're printing money, and you're growing the population like crazy. We're going to have a housing crisis. No one listened to me.
I often share my story actually about this, and it matters because I was 25 years old, a single woman before I met him, when I was able to save enough to buy a little 2-bedroom townhouse in the east end of Ottawa. So I had saved $25,000 to put the down payment on a $230,000 little townhouse, 2 bedrooms. This is in 2012. And I was able to do that by myself. This is 3 years before the Liberal government took office. That dream was achievable not that long ago. Yeah. So we can do it again, and that's what we want to do.
So there's a disconnect, really, between people's aspirations and dreams and their ability to realize them. It's like the door's open, they can't step through it, or the door's just...
The government has slammed the door in their face. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. This is a government problem. This did not just happen. Like, other countries have very affordable homes, and they have a lot less land than we have. This is a function of the fact the government, we're the second slowest place to get a building permit. 30% of the money you spend on a home is just taxes. Then you've got out of control money printing and immigration artificially boosting demand. It's pretty straightforward. If you block supply and boost demand, you're going to have higher prices. And the people who don't have stuff, i.e. young people, are the ones who will suffer. So we know the good thing is we know how to fix that.
So tell me, how do you fix it?
Well, we've got to axe the taxes on homes. Like, I'll get rid of the federal sales tax on homes. I've already said I'll pay the municipalities to cut their building taxes by $50,000 a home. That can knock $100,000 off a house. We're going to incentivize them to speed up permits and free up land. I'll sell off 15% of the federal government's land for new homes. We're going to train up 350,000 young trades workers to actually swing the hammers and lay the foundation and frame those homes. And all of this will deliver 2.3 million new homes over the next 5 years, while we control population so that we add homes faster than people.
So I was looking at some of the numbers, and in 2024, there were 245,000 housing starts. So averaged over 5 years, that's 1.2 million. So this is ambitious, but it also isn't enough to meet the demand.
Well, it will make a huge dent. It will be effectively like doubling the home building over the next 5 years. Is that 2.3 million working together with provinces, or is that separate from, say, what Doug Ford is proposing in Ontario? We will be working with provinces. It's my national goal to get 2.3 million over 5, and we have sort of a breakdown of how we'll do it. Like, if you start by you get rid of the sales tax on new homes, that'll bump up home building by $30,000 a year. You cut development charges by another $50,000. That's another $30,000. There's 60,000 extra homes every year. Then you incentivize the municipalities to boost permits by 15% every year. You add in another 300,000 homes that will be built on federal government land that I plan to sell off to builders. And you get up to, you put all that arithmetic together, you go from 250,000 per year over 5 years to enough to get 2.3 million in that time period. And if you can match that with controlling the population growth, you add more homes than people, you'll find the market will loosen up very quickly and people will start to get a break on buying and renting.
How do you feel about the government being in the business of development?
Well, they can't even deliver a passport. Why would we need government bureaucrats to run building programs? I mean, that's what Justin Trudeau promised in 2017. You can look up the videos of him saying, today we're announcing the government is getting back in the business of home building. Well, that was 2017. What's happened since then? Housing costs have doubled. Construction is down. We have companies and workers to build homes. What we don't have is permits to build them. Government is in the business of housing right now. That's the problem. They're the obstacle. You talk to any home builder, they will tell you, we would love to build more homes. We can hire workers to build more homes. The problem is it takes 7 years to get a permit. And then when we do build them, we spend more than a third of the money on taxes. So government is deeply involved in home building right now. Mark Carney wants to get it even bigger. He's talking about a $35 billion government program. Who's going to pay for that? When the last 10 years, those programs have actually made the problem worse. We need to get the government out of the way so builders can build and buyers can buy.
I want to talk to you about Donald Trump and tariffs.
Right.
Let's say you become prime minister.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you do to retaliate against his tariffs?
Well, we bring in tariffs that, counter tariffs that target things that we don't need, can make ourselves or buy elsewhere. And then I say to the president, look, your party's up for midterms in, a year and a half. If you have rising prices and falling jobs in those swing states, you're not going to do particularly well. And your Congress and Senate are going to be rebelling against you. Let's put an end to this madness. Let's suspend the tariffs on both sides of the border and renegotiate a third trade agreement that does two major things. One, ends the tariffs. Two, protects our sovereignty. And I believe that's ultimately where this is going. He's already backing down from tariffs for other countries. Strangely, since Carney came in, he hasn't been able to get any of the tariffs removed for Canada. But we will get an end to this. But we can't control Donald Trump. So we have to focus on what we do control. And that means bringing home production, developing our resources, building pipelines to get our resources to other non-American markets so that we have the strength to stand on our own 2 feet and stop being so helplessly reliant on the Americans.
I guess what I'm wondering is, in the midst of a cost of living crisis that so many Canadians find themselves in, is adding a tax on more imports the right thing to do? Are you not just shooting more holes in the bottom of a sinking boat?
Look, there's no question that tariffs cost money to the people who pay them. That's why I've said they need to be matched with bigger tax relief on the other end. So I'll cut income tax by 15%. I'm ending the capital gains tax when you reinvest in Canada. I'm axing the sales tax on new homes. And so in that way, we're going to neutralize the effect of tariffs until we get rid of them. The problem with just not having any tariffs is then there's no deterrent against the Americans for the damage they're doing our economy. So we will cut taxes to neutralize the impact on Canadians of the tariff war. And that's the difference between us and the Liberals. They think everything should just be more government spending. So they want to have tariffs as well, but they want all the money to go to government spending. So you're going to get inflation from government spending and from tariffs if you get a fourth Liberal term under Mark Carney.
You know, if you go to the negotiating table with Donald Trump to renegotiate CUSMA, one of the biggest irritants for the Americans is supply management, particularly on dairy and eggs. So is that something that you would consider opening up or reforming?
We're going to protect supply management. We want to have a secure and independent food supply. The Americans have backed down on that before. And by the way, they have a phenomenal amount of agricultural subsidies of their own that they don't want to touch. So we're going to stand up for our farmers on this side of the border as we stand up for consumers and workers and everyone else.
Some of the stores are putting a T on goods to show that the tariff has impacted that price of that good. But I also hear from Canadians that say, I can't afford made in Canada, that even some of the Canadian produce, for whatever reason, whether it's greenhouse cultivations, made it more expensive. So what are you going to do to bring down the cost
Yeah.
of food for Canadians?
Well, again, the government has made everything more expensive. We can't just blame it on world affairs. Food prices have risen 37% faster in Canada than they did in the United States over the last 5 years, while Mark Carney has been Trudeau's economic advisor. And that's largely because of the Liberal carbon tax on the farmers and truckers who bring us our food, a tax the Liberals will definitely bring back if they are reelected. We also have to cut the red tape. This plastics ban, for example, this is insane. Food is going to go bad 80% faster if there's no plastics to preserve it. But those are costs already being imposed by the government on our farming and food sector. We need to remove that. In fact, we need to reduce taxes on our farmers, which I plan to do, so that we can actually produce more food. It should be cheap to buy food in Canada because we have the third biggest supply of farmland per capita in the world, but it's so expensive. The other thing that's driving up our food prices is that the Liberals have weakened our dollar. Food is an internationally priced commodity. And so when you have a weak dollar, it costs more of those dollars to buy a meal. And we need to bolster our dollar by unleashing our resource sector, bringing home economic production, and making our lives affordable again.
What about the handful of giants that dominate Canada's grocery market?
There's definitely a need for more competition in the grocery market. We need to become a more entrepreneurial economy. The challenge we have right now is that anyone who tries to break into these large oligopolistic marketplaces, they get crushed by regulation, red tape, and costs that are not of a concern if you're a giant, because you have the lawyers and lobbyists to cut through it all. But we need to cut back on that in order to unleash more entrepreneurial upstarts who can take on the giants. And that is the only way that you'll bring down the margins. Now, you can't bring down the raw cost of food that way, because that is about the cost of generating the food and transforming it into a saleable retail product. But you can reduce the margins so that Canadians do not pay an inflated cost for food.
Well, and also our phone bills.
Yes.
You've got the big three, the telcos that dominate that market. Would you open it up to more competition?
Absolutely. We do need more competition in telcos. And we will do a review of the competition rules to make sure that upstarts that are trying to break in have an easier break. Same with banking. We want open banking, so it's easier for customers to move their accounts to new upstarts and get new options with bigger interest payments on their deposits and lower interest payments on their loans and more flexibility. All of that needs to happen.
I'm going to ask you about Bill C-18. This is, Canadians will remember when their Canadian news was taken off of Facebook and Instagram. It was a piece of legislation that was fomented by a couple of the legacy media outlets in Canada. And it was meant to compel Meta to pay for Canadian content. But what ended up happening was the small and digital companies ended up losing their primary source of distribution overnight. Is this a bill that you would consider repealing?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's that and C-11. These are two bills that are really designed for censorship. The Liberal government has a deliberate policy of shutting down independent voices so that they can have government control, state-owned or corporate-controlled media monopolize the conversation in this country. We need more independent voices, more media, more upstarts. That is how we're going to combat this problem. And we want Canadian news back on all the platforms. We want to end the CRTC's power to manipulate which news gets promoted and demoted. And we want to go back to a policy of free speech.
Right. In the last few minutes that I have you here, we're going to go through a quick lightning round of questions, all right?
Here we go.
You're good at those.
The first question is your top 5 favorite places to visit in Canada.
My favorite is the Okanagan, particularly the South Okanagan, close to Oliver, Soyuz. It's nice and dry, but there's beautiful lakes and mountainous terrain. It's a wonderful spot. Second, I would say Calgary, which is my hometown. It's It's got a great, like tremendous amount of energy, like entrepreneurial spirit. People are hustling, they're working, they're typically very optimistic, and of course the mountains are nearby. I love Montreal.
Old Montreal.
Old Montreal. We love to spend time there. Anna's a Montrealer, so we spend a lot of time. Whenever we can, we hang out in Montreal cafes and old hotels. The limestone buildings are beautiful. After that, what else will we go? Where we go from there, sweetheart? What do we like to do? Which other parts of the country? I mean, we've been literally everywhere.
Yeah.
It's hard to I'm thinking of so many different places. It's hard to actually
right now.
To narrow it down.
All right. Well,
the
we can
the Great North. I love to be in. Yukon is incredibly picturesque, and land when the sun doesn't go down, it's really almost psychedelic. To 2 a.m, it's still bright outside. This is my tourism plug.
Top song on your Spotify playlist?
Top song right now. I haven't had a chance to listen to a lot of music lately, but I would say, I like the classics. I like Led Zeppelin. I like The Doors. What are we listening to lately? She has me listening to a lot of Spanish music.
Well, we listen to Latin music because of me, of course, but we also like you and I, 90s rock alternative.
Yeah, she loves Nirvana.
Yeah, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Incubus. Yeah.
What else? Red Hot Chili Peppers.
We went to see Red Hot Chili Peppers together.
Yeah. And she usually decides what we're listening to.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's
Yeah.
You're road tripping with 3 premiers across the province. One gets control of the music, one's on navigation, and one gets to pick the snacks.
Oh my goodness. That sounds like we hopefully don't end up in the ditch.
I don't know.
So you're asking me to name who these premiers are?
Yes. Who's going to be on navigation? Who's good?
You're talking about
Who would
premiers?
be on navigation?
Yeah.
premiers?
Which premier would you put on navigation?
I think Scott Moe.
Okay.
He's a very practical guy.
Who's going to pick snacks?
Snacks? Jeez.
Oh my God, I don't know.
I would say Legault would pick snacks because Quebec
He'd bring the beaver tail.
Quebec is known for great, some of the best delicacies in the country. And then what's the other one?
Who's on music?
Oh boy. Who's on music?
Oh, music. Jeez, I don't know. I would say probably David Eby because socialists love music, and so he maybe
have a good playlist.
Probably have some 1960s hippies music, I'm guessing.
All right, this is my final question. Say one nice thing about 3 of the leaders you were on stage with the other night.
I think Mr. Carney is a family man. I know we've talked a little bit about our kids, and so I know that's something he values a lot. And so I would say that he appears to be a family man. Mr. Singh is very physically fit. He likes to exercise, and he's, I understand, a very good martial artist. And Mr. Blanchette,
He's funny.
he is actually a funny guy.
Funny.
I like Blanchette. I think he's hilarious, and
I'll go for a beer with him. He's funny.
he's a character, and I think he's an enjoyable guy to talk to. I find him a good personality.
Well, I appreciate you 2 coming in, taking the time to speak with me. All the best on the rest of your campaign, Mr. Poilievre.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Nice
All
to
the best
meet
to you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.